You know, in a lifetime of 75 years, if we do the math, then what science tells us is that we'll probably have about 136,000 dreams. These are night dreams, by the way, not daydreams, night dreams. And so I would ask you to reflect a minute on how many of those you remember. I want to inspire you, hopefully today, so that you will want to remember your dreams and to write them down. And as you do that, you'll begin to see a treasure trove of what I call your soul's autobiography of you and your life. My voyage into dreaming began when I was 6 years old. That's a long time ago. And I woke up with a nightmare. And I could take you into that nightmare, but I have a short period of time, so I'll just leave it as what it is. But it did involve my father. And we were in the basement. He hurt himself with a wrench, and there was blood everywhere. And I woke up and was looking for my mother, couldn't find her. And then came back. I went out to the street, ran back to the house. We didn't even live in a house, by the way. It's an interesting thing about dreams, isn't it? I was running back to the house, and my mom and dad were at the door. It was at night. And I was so happy to see them. And I stopped halfway because in place of my dad's head was this mole-like creature. And I woke up and I was just terrified. I ran into my parents' bedroom. I went to my mom's side of the bed because we all know which side mom and dad sleeps on. You don't wake dad up with something like that. So I woke mom up. She immediately hugged me and said, "Honey, are you okay?" Good first question, right? Was I feeling okay? And I nodded. I couldn't talk. I was crying. So I nodded vehemently. And she said, "Did you have a bad dream?" And I nodded. And she said, "It's okay." And she loved me. The best thing that possibly she could do is give me love. She comforted me. She said, "It's okay, it's over." That was good. And then she said something that just kind of it reverberated within me. She said, "It's okay, it wasn't real." And I couldn't really sustain that. In my mind, I couldn't say the words, but in my mind I was screaming, it was real, it was real, it was real. Well, that began my search. It went all the way through. It's gone all the way through my life, and it's gotten me here today to talk to you about what do we learn from 25,000 dreams. These are not just my dreams, obviously. I spent my entire life in consciousness research and teaching globally. And so I've had occasion with my emphasis being on dreams and sleep to really work intimately with many, many people with their dreams. And what's amazing is I won't spend time here now, although it's fun to do this, to talk about people like Ramanujan, who was the mathematician, the Indian mathematician, who worked with his dreams to create the pi formula, or Kekule, who saw the benzene ring in a dream. How the periodic element of charts got created, how Paul McCartney wrote the song Yesterday, Handel's Messiah came from a dream, how the independence of India came from a dream that Mahatma Gandhi had that turned into the Salt March, how the Quran was in large part written through dreams, how dreams curated through people in the Bible. It's all in the cultures in our religions all over the world. Why is dreaming so important, and why do we not pay more attention to it? Well, I think this is the new frontier. I think that more and more we're going to pay attention to it. National Geographic here, we're right now, I'll date this a little bit, April 2020, it's the virus time, the first pandemic, we're daydreaming something together, pretty significant here. That's a whole nother topic that goes into Joseph Campbell, but that's an amazing topic right there of how myths are public dreams. So as we're awake and we're dreaming, we're actually creating who we are and what our future is. So there's a real need to first key into those night dreams. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because we're losing that. What I've learned from working with over 25,000 dreams and many of the people who had them is the reality that our dreams have three separate and important things to give us. One is a reset. This is a master clock that we have that keeps our entire system working on a 24-hour basis. Sleep is our doorway in to resetting that system. When we don't get appropriate sleep, then the system begins to break down. And we have things like health problems, all kinds, depression. We have post-traumatic shock syndrome. We have diabetes. We can have heart difficulties. viruses take over, our immunity goes down. So the health issue here, mentally, emotionally, and physically with dreams, is very acute. In the Greek world, back almost 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, actually, Asclepius was known as the god of healing, and they built a temple to him. And people would travel from miles and miles and miles to come so that they could be healed through their dream work. Through their dream work. This is something that we can do each night. So the first thing is to be able to get appropriate sleep, to be able to relax, because every dream is going to be about the dreamer. Everyone in the dream, everybody that's interacting in the dream, the action in the dream, the who, what, when, where, why, how in your dream is going to tell you about your emotional well-being. There's a neuroscience center that's been studying dreams in Lyon, France for years. And in this virus time, shall I call it, they've been noticing a 35% increase in they've been noticing a 35, my computer is doing strange things, a 35% increase in the recall dreaming right now. People are more vividly dreaming, and it's really linked to the fact that we're staying at home, that we're not so busy in our lives, we're not so distracted by the everyday things, we're a little bit more quiet. We've come back home. We've come back inside. I think of the Wizard of Oz as a public myth and how important that story is in just about everybody who's ever seen it. The lesson of there's no place like home really does come home. And that's what your dreams are like at night. It's like coming at home. So the first thing is every dream's about the dreamer. So you want to write them down and then study them. Second point, every dream tells a story. So just like with the Wizard of Oz, it's a wonderful story. And it's about a young girl who gets swept up in a tornado and has a dream. All the rest of that Munchkin Land and Oz and all that is a dream. And then she wakes up. And what she learned from the dream was that there's no place like home. Dreams connect us to the third point in our dreaming, and that's that they reconnect us with the source of our very being, the source of our life, that which breathes us, that which is within everything in life. That's our core. So I see it as soul messages. I see it as a way that our soul whispers to us about how we're living our lives, how we're conducting our days. And so it'll come through in a language. And what I've learned through the years is what that language is. It's pictures. When I was younger, this was not the case in most cases. If you're my age or around my age, you'll know what I'm talking about. For instance, when you were at an airport and you needed to find a restroom, you would need to look for a word that would tell you which restroom to go into. Now, what do you look for? You look for a picture, an image. And images in just 10, 15 short years, largely also because of internet, have kind of taken over our lives because it's a universal kind of communication. This is the same communication that our dreams use. Everyone's dream is unique. You may have a brother or sister, you may have a spouse that you're living with right now very closely and intimately, but when you wake up in the morning, you'll have different dreams. You may have the same people in the dream, but they may be doing just different things. So dreams are very personal to each one of us. They are personal messages from our inner self to our outer self about how we're living, about our emotional maturity. And working with them helps you to curate your emotional maturity. Then there are the dreams that are bigger dreams. And in many of the indigenous cultures, they would study dreams. They would come together in the morning and they would share dreams. It was seen as an important part of our health and well-being. So particularly in these times when we're staying closer to home, as I think many people will from now on, perhaps that is something that we could practice doing in our own family. Because as we curate and we invest in that kind of health, mentally, emotionally, and physically, as we begin to reach out and learn that language of pictures and what those pictures mean, then we can begin to aid one another in ways that are soul producing. They're soul encouraging. And they will encourage us in the way that we interact with each other so that we do have love and compassion. At masterliving.org, which is my curated space right now that I'm working with, there's a sub theme that's called "We fall in love to rise with compassion." And I think that's so true. Right at the turn of the century and millennium, I was putting together a book called Spiritual Renaissance, because I could see that the Renaissance period of 400 or 500 years ago was coming back. But this time it was going to be creative, yes, but it was going to be a spiritual Renaissance. There was going to be an awakening everywhere about who we are, what our potential is, what we really can do individually and collectively, and how absolutely essential each one of us are. Absolutely essential. We each carry a uniqueness that no one else has. And to know the self, to look within for the answers rather than look outside, is the whole key. Because then we first are lined up with who the master really is inside of us. And then we can really have a life that's worth examining. And the best way to do that is to remember your dreams. Write them down. That's my message.